So we're going to spend a little time today talking about boats. I always liked boats. I was in San Diego, and they have a big naval shipyard there. I was in Newport News, Virginia, and they have another big shipyard there, and these huge aircraft carriers are there, especially in San Diego. Massive ships. So today we're going to talk about boats. So why boats? Boats are a symbol of salvation in the Bible. And they're also a sign of trouble in the Bible. So we're going to take a look at some places there. And in history, we've always had Old Ironside, and we've had the Enterprise in World War II, and the Reuben James and the Thresher, the submarine that went down, all tragedies, and some good things that happened in Missouri, which the armistice was signed and the surrender of Japan in 1945. So ships have been a sort of a focus of the world at different times in history. So I'm going to start with a little story about a girl named Violet Jessup. Now, Violet was a nurse, and she was a stewardess. When she was born, she contracted tuberculosis at an early age. She was born in Argentina, of English heritage. And Violet was not in good shape. She contracted TB when she was younger, and they did not expect her to live. Well, she did live. Her father died. They moved back to England. Her mother was a stewardess on these ocean liners, which was a big thing that day in the early 1900s. So Violet decided to follow in her mother's footsteps. She needed the money. So she went to work on a ship called the Olympic. There were 3 ships, by the way, sister ships, all of the same size. One was the Olympic, one was the Titanic, and was the Britannic. Everybody thinks the Titanic was the biggest, but there were 3 actually the same size owned by White Star Lines. So she went to work, and she was on the Olympic. And as she was working on the Olympic in 1911, it was struck by a destroyer, an HMS Ethan Hawke, and almost sunk. But it made it back to port. And Violet, with the rest of the passengers, debarked. And then she got another opportunity to work on another boat. So she decided to take that other boat, and the other boat's name was the Titanic. So in 1912, 4 days out of port, the Titanic hit an iceberg, as we all know, with a tremendous loss of life. There were a few people saved. And as she was escorting passengers into the lifeboat, there came a time when the people that were in charge said to her, "Violet, you have to get in the lifeboat too," and they handed her a baby. So she got in the lifeboat with the baby, and she survived that. Now, if that isn't amazing enough, in 1916, she went back to work on the 3rd of the sister ships, the Britannic. And as she was sailing the Britannic, it was a hospital ship, because she was a nurse, it struck a mine and sunk. And 30 people were lost, which is amazing there weren't more. So as you can see, sometimes the obvious isn't obvious. Now, she should have died 3-4 times, and she didn't. I just found that amazing that all of these things in her life, and she, by the way, retired and died at 83 years old in England. So what about boats? Why do they captivate everybody's imagination? And I looked it up, and I wanted to know what was the first boat. I know what the first boat was, but I wanted to see what the know-it-all scientists have to say. And they don't know either, by the way. But biblically, we all know the story of Noah. The earth was wicked. God said he's going to destroy the earth, but there's always a remnant people. And Noah was a remnant in his day and his family. So God told Noah to make a boat And it depends on what you use for a cubit measure. And this boat was either 450 or 510 feet long. And it was either 75 feet wide or 85 feet wide. And based on those measurements, there was plenty of room to house all the animals. That's a scientific fact in that day and age. So Noah made this boat. And it's interesting that as he's making this boat, you can imagine what the people are saying, because it's never rained. There's no bodies of water. What are you doing making this thing? You know, something's got to be wrong with you. And he's telling the people that the world you got a problem, the world was wicked. The people had a chance to get in the boat. Isn't that right? Only 8 people were in that boat. The Mayflower, by contrast, was 100 foot long, had 135 people in it. This was 500 feet long, had 8 people in it. Some interesting facts that I thought were amazing. There is in Kentucky, everybody know about the Noah boat up there. Just amazing thing. One day I am going to go up there, Carol and I, and see that. But the engineering to construct that boat, by the way, was perfect. The dimensions were absolutely perfect for a ship, seagoing ship. Engineers have said that, scientists have said that. How did he know? He was no engineer or scientist, so he had to be divinely inspired. How did they know that if you didn't wash your hands when you operated on somebody, there were germs there that could kill you? How did they know that? They didn't find that out until World War I. Before World War I, after the Civil War, when they were killing people left and right because of the infections, because they didn't know enough to wash their hands. They used the same blood in the same pan to wash the instruments. Just a mess there. Anyway, so 7 days, they closed the door, and 7 days they waited and no rain. So you can imagine what the people outside were thinking. Look at this guy. He's lost it. Him and his family in there. And then it started to rain. Now, it doesn't say so in Scripture, but what do you think the people outside were thinking? Let me in the boat. But was it too late? You bet. Probation for them was over 7 days prior. They had made their decision. So it's important the decisions you make every day where you're going to end up, because you never know when your last day is your last day. So some lessons about the ark. Obedience equals safety. In the ark and boats are a symbol of God's salvation. You've heard the expression, don't miss the boat? That's where that comes from. We're all in the same boat. Sink or swim, we're all in the same boat. Plan ahead. It wasn't raining when Noah was building the ark. Just because you can't see the danger or the problems, don't wait till the last minute. Stay fit, and when you are old, God may ask you to do some amazing things. Noah was 500 when he started building the ark, and that's a ripe old age. But I think the point here is stay active, stay sharp. You never know when God is going to ask you to do something. Be ready to do it. Don't listen to the critics. How many people say, evolution, that's the thing, that's where it's at. And all you people that believe in creation and the creator God, you people just aren't scientific. It takes more faith to believe in evolution than it does to believe in Christianity. No question about that. That's our scientific facts. If you listen to creationists and to 3ABN or places like that give you scientists and mathematicians and especially astrologers, they can understand the complexity of the universe and how it can't be an accident. Just no way it's an accident. So don't listen to the critics. Build your future on high ground. Aim high. If you miss the mark, you're going to be up there near the top somewhere. For safety's sake, travel in pairs. They traveled in pairs coming on the ark, didn't they? For safety's sake, travel in pairs. Always have somebody you can talk to. It helps. We need encouragement, especially in days like this. How many times has God said, don't be afraid? Don't be afraid. We live in everybody's so afraid, like Sue was saying. People are just petrified of everything. And it's not good for you to be petrified like that. It's not healthy. Speed isn't always an advantage. Noah took a long time to build that ark because it was quite an undertaking. So be purposeful in what you do. Remember, turtles and cheetahs were both on the ark. Remember, the ark was built by amateurs and the Titanic by professionals. So I think God knows a little bit more than the engineers and the modern day people who think they know everything because they have a PhD after their name. By the way, PhD means piled higher and deeper. No matter what the storm you're in, when God is in the boat, there's always a rainbow waiting. There was a rainbow for Noah, and there can be a rainbow for us too. So let's go to Jonah. There's another story about a boat. And we all know the story about Jonah, but let me read this for those maybe who've forgotten. And it's a quick read. Now the word of the Lord, this is Jonah, verse 1, chapter 1. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come before me. But Jonah, bad word, when you see that word, problems. But Jonah rose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. But the Lord sent out a great wind on the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, so that the ship was about to be broken up. Then the mariners were afraid, and every man cried out to his God, and threw the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten the load. But Jonah had gone down into the lowest parts of the ship, had lain down, and was fast asleep. So the captain came to him and said to him, What do you mean, sleeper? Arise, call on your God. Perhaps your God will consider us so that we may not perish. And they said to one another, Come, let us cast lots, that we may know for whose cause this trouble has come upon us. So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. And they said to him, Please tell us, for whose cause is this trouble upon us? What is your occupation, and where do you come from? What is your country, and what people are you? So he said to them, I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. Then the men were exceedingly afraid and said to him, Why have you done this? For the men knew that he fled from the presence of the Lord because he had told them. Then they said to him, What shall we do to you that the sea may be calm for us? For the sea was growing more tempestuous. And he said to them, Pick me up and throw me into the sea. Then the sea will become calm for you. For I know that this great tempest is because of me. He gets an A for honesty there anyway. Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to return to land, but they could not. So they didn't want to hurt Jonah. They tried to get to land, but the wind was too great. Therefore they cried out to the Lord, saying, We pray, O Lord. Now they're talking to his Lord, not their gods who they revere and have idols of. They're talking to his Lord. Do not charge us with innocent blood, for you, O Lord, have done as it pleased you. So right there you can see that he must have made some type of impression on them for them to pray to his God and not their own. So they picked up Jonah and threw him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging. The minute they threw him in, it was calm. Then the men feared the Lord exceedingly and offered a sacrifice to the Lord and took vows. Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow Jonah. Okay, what could we learn from Jonah? First thing we learn is don't get in a boat that's going the wrong way. If you know which way you're supposed to go, go that way. Don't turn around and go the other way. By the way, Tarshish was near Spain. That's a long, long way from Nineveh in the opposite direction. Long way. You can't run from God. You can't. A lot of people have tried it. It doesn't work. God has a plan for your life, and you're better off if you follow it. And you can witness no matter where you are. Did he witness to these people? Why he told them his story before he got in that boat, I will never know. But he told them where he was going, why he was there. These were complete strangers. Why would he do that? I have no idea. I have no idea why he would do that. Recognize your sinfulness. You have got a lot of company. Just because you've made mistakes, don't think there's no redemption for you. That's why Christ hung on that cross for you. Because when you do make a mistake, he doesn't say, when you sin, you have an advocate. He says, if you sin. So he doesn't expect you to sin. He expects us to live holy lives. But if you fall, don't get discouraged. Get back up. Get on the road and go where he tells you. You cannot run or sail from God. How many of us, when we're told to do one thing, this is not the right time. Timing is not good. I'm not ready yet. I know I did that before I was converted. You know, they asked me to stand up when Doug Batchelor had his thing. I wanted to. I really wanted to. But something says, nah, everybody's looking at you. You don't want to do that. Everybody's looking at you. If you're going to proclaim Christ, you don't care who's looking at you. So eventually, obviously, that happened. And it was in front of Doug Batchelor live this time. So it worked good for me. So with Jonah, he eventually did go, as we know, to Nineveh, gave the word of the Lord, and then he didn't agree with the results. He did what God wanted him to do, and then he was supposed to be done. But he wasn't satisfied with the Lord's action. I want to punish these people. That's what you sent me for. I want to do this. It's not your call, it's his call. Everything in life is his call, not yours. You follow him, you'll be much better off than if you follow you, because you make mistakes. He don't make mistakes. The next boat story we're going to talk about is in Mark 4, chapter 35. Mark chapter 4, verse 35. 35 to 41. On the same day, when evening had come, he said to them, let us cross over to the other side. They're on the Sea of Galilee, they're going to the other side. Now when they had left the multitude, they took him along in the boat as he was. And other little boats were also with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that it was already filling. But he was in the stern asleep on a pillow. And they awoke him and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? Then he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. But he said to them, Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith? And they feared exceedingly and said to one another, Who can this be that even the wind and the sea obey him? Let's go to verse 38. Teacher, do not you care that we are perishing? Is that the dumbest question you ever heard by anybody? Here the creator of the universe comes, takes the form of a man, suffers, preaches to us, is rejected, is scourged, is beaten, dies, and he doesn't care. These guys still didn't get it yet. And we would have probably done the same thing in his boat. You know, we're very critical looking backwards. Why didn't they see this? Why didn't they see that? You kind of wonder, would you have seen it? Probably not. second thing we learn is we're always safe. We're in the boat Jesus is in. If he's in the boat, you got no problems. It's when you leave the boat that the problems arise. Know who to go when there is danger. Who did they go to when the ship was, they went right to him. At least they knew where to go to solve their problems. Very important to do that. And his words are proof that he is the creator. When he said, peace, be still, everything stopped. He didn't have to holler and scream. The wind was not deaf. It could hear him. He just says, peace, be still. By his mere presence and who he is, he controls everything. Sometimes it doesn't seem like it because we have free will. And every time we exercise our free will, we get in trouble when it's contrary to what he wants us to do. Jesus can calm the storms in your life. You believe that? I know so many times, I have a problem with, I get agitated over small things, drive me crazy. Big things, not a problem. I can handle anything like that. But small things, they just drive me nuts. And when you stop and you start talking to him, he calms you right down. If you don't talk to him, you just get agitated and you reach a point of no return sometimes. Where did that come from when you say something? Where did that come from? That's not me. Well, yeah, it is you if you don't have him. When the storms are all around you, you can have peace as long as you're in his boat. So let's talk about Matthew. Let's go to Matthew 14, 22 to 33. Matthew 14, 22 to 23. This is right after he had fed the 5,000. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. So he sent them, but he didn't go with them. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. Now when evening came, he was alone there. But the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the winds, for the wind was contrary. Now in the fourth watch of the night, about 3 a.m., Jesus went to them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It is a ghost," and they cried out for fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer, it is I. Do not be afraid." Do not be afraid. We got to listen to that more in these times in which we live. Do not be afraid. And Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." So he said, "Come." And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid. He was afraid. Here we go again. And beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, "Lord, save me." And immediately, Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him, saying, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Then those who were in the boat came and worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." I love this story. Only Matthew records this event. It's not in any of the other Gospels. So what lessons do we learn from this little boat story? The question is, are we afraid of the unrecognizable? Don't we seem to tend to fear things we don't know? If you know it, you can pretty much account for what's going to happen, or you can kind of prepare. But if you don't know, that really, the unknown is terrifying to human beings because you don't know what's going to happen. And now, who was it they didn't recognize? They didn't recognize Jesus. It wasn't somebody that they didn't know. They didn't recognize him. Could it be that their fear was so great they could not even see it was him? I don't know. When they recognized him, they heard him say, "Do not be afraid." He is there to comfort you. He can take care of any problem you have. You may not like the answer. You know, someone's sick, there's terminal, and you can't understand why God didn't answer your prayer. But God always answers your prayer. It may not be the answer you want, and you don't understand. You ever have one of those aha moments? When you don't realize what happened until somebody explains it. That's why that happened. That's one of those aha moments, you know. Do not be afraid. Jesus gives us assurance. When he saw it was Jesus, Peter, he said, yeah, I'm going to come to you. Is it okay if I come to you? Yep, come on. Now, everybody criticizes Peter. Yeah, but he lost faith. Peter was the only one that got out of the boat. You recognize that? Everybody else said in there, oh, we're good. We're in a boat. It's bad in here, but it's going to be a lot worse out there. But he didn't see things that way. He says, there's my Lord right there, and he's telling me to come. Peter always was getting into trouble, but his heart was in the right place. And God made up for his shortcomings. And when he said, you know, come to me, Peter didn't hesitate. He didn't say, well, wait a minute. You come and see first, and then I'll come. He didn't say that. He said, come to me now, just like you are, and just like the circumstances are, come to me now. And Peter didn't hesitate. So I guess the lesson is, go where Jesus is, even if it seems impossible. When Peter lost concentration with Jesus, he concentrated on the wrong thing. So the lesson is, when you lose focus on him, other things enter into your life and become dominant. The things that you don't want to affect your life somehow seem to take over your life. If you don't have him, you let circumstances control your life instead of you controlling the circumstances. I just thought that was kind of interesting. When Jesus got in the boat, what happened? Wind stopped. Everything stopped. Isn't that amazing? And Peter got in the boat with him, of course. But he said immediately he stretched out his hand. When you're in trouble, God's not going to wait. You need help, he'll give you help when you need it. When he knows you need it, not when you think you need it. Another interesting point. Let me read this again. If I can find it. Verse 33. Then those who were in the boat came and worshipped him, saying, truly you are the Son of God. I just want to make this point. Who was in the boat? The 12. By the way, anybody ever hear of the Jesus boat? That was a boat that was found in Galilee maybe 20, 30 years ago when the sea was really low, and it was carbon dated to the time of Jesus. That's why they call it the Jesus boat. It was 27 feet long, had 4 rowers alternating. You know, they weren't right across from another, they were staggered. Had a mast. It was, like I said, 27 feet long. It was 7.5 feet wide, and it was 4.5 feet tall, but they had taken boards off it, and this is what was left. So 12 people, my point is 12 people could have fit in that boat easily, because it was big enough. All 12 were his disciples, which would include Judas. Isn't that right? One of the 12. And it said, all worshipped him. That means Judas worshipped him. Isn't that right? Once saved, always saved. Do you think that Judas really adored him that day? I think so. He saw it. Did Judas deny his Lord? Chances are he won't be there in the kingdom. So once saved, always saved is a myth. It's not true. You have to be with the Lord every minute of every day. You may fall, but he'll pick you up. But this idea of, yeah, I said the magic words and I can do what I want the rest of my life, I'm good, that's not biblical. So here's a question. If we never get out of the boat to go to see Jesus, but try to stay safe with our friends, will we be better off? Don't stay with your friends if they're going to be out of the boat. Your friends are not going to save you. When the judgment comes, the Lord is not going to say, okay, bring your best friends and we'll see what they have to say about you. The decision's been made based upon what you do in your life. So do things according to the Lord's plan. If your friends don't want to come, what are you going to do? You can't force anybody. That's why you have a free will. That's why the love of God is so, so very important. That love involves risk. Risk involves denial and rejection. You can reject the Lord, and it will hurt him. But it's your choice of where you go. Your choice. So, in concluding, what are the reasons to abandon ship? We've been talking about boats. Number one reason is the captain of the ship is left. If the captain goes, like, do you remember that ship? I'm trying to remember the name of the Greek ship that tried to go between these two islands there, and it cracked the hull and then it flooded. And the first one out of the boat was the captain, that Greek captain. He was history. Goodbye. And the rest of the crew were saying, why should we stay here? He's gone. They went too and left the people. And there's a lot of loss of life there. So that's kind of a humorous story. But in fact, if the captain of the ship leaves the ship, that means the ship is not worth saving, nor the people in it. The second reason is the ship is sinking. If your ship is sinking, time to leave the ship. If your friends are sinking, and you like to go with them, and you like to party, and you like to do whatever it is, that ship is sinking. Don't stay with the ship, because you'll go down with the ship. The ship is breaking apart in stormy seas. When you have problems in your life, and you still can't seem to hold it together, go to somebody, the Lord, who can hold that ship together. And the ship is hit by enemy or friendly fire. Everybody know what friendly fire is? Friendly fire is when your friends tell you in this life, tell you to do something that will put in danger your eternal salvation. That's not friendly fire, that's unfriendly fire. But they call it friendly fire because you think you're your friends. In the military, you think your friends are your friends until they start getting the wrong coordinates and end up shelling you. Not good. So, what are the reasons to stay in the ship? There's only one reason to stay in the ship, and that's the captain is there. So if your captain is there, there's no reason why you should ever abandon ship. Do we have a closing song? One more boat story. This father took his two young boys sailing down near the Keys. The water was beautiful, the day was warm, just beautiful, beautiful weather. And they get down there, and it's pretty shallow water, and he says to the boys, now I don't want you to go too far from the boat. If you get hot, you can go, but don't go too far from the boat, because there could be sharks around here. So the boy says, okay, Dad. So they jumped off the side of the boat, and the father's watching, he doesn't see anything, and they're having a great time. And then the father sees sharks circling, and the boys are getting farther from the boat. And he said, boys, come back to the boat. I see danger ahead. But they looked, they couldn't see the dorsal fins, which not necessarily means the sharks aren't around. They just swim underneath their prey, and they attack usually from the bottom up. So he says, boys, come back. There's danger here. I want you to come back. And they kept going farther. Oh, he always says that. He's always worried about us. Never mind what he says. Come on, we're having a great time. It's sunny out and everything. So the father is screaming now to the boys, come back, come back, come back to the boat. As they're getting farther away, now they can't even hear him. They're having a great time, and the sharks are circling. So the father cuts his wrists for the blood, because sharks can smell blood a long way away. And he jumps in the water, and he starts splashing and splashing, trying to draw the sharks away. Now here's the question. Could that father have done any more to save those children than he already did. Could he have done any more? No. Your Father could not do any more than he's already done to save you. Father in heaven, we thank you for your grace, for your tremendous love for us, and for the gift of salvation that you bring so readily. We thank you for the gift of your Son, that we may have the right to the throne of grace and the eternal life you have planned for us. We thank you and we ask you to bless the rest of our day, and we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.